Hello, everyone. We are delighted to have you along for an exciting preview, a behind the scenes look at an intensely personal and thought provoking video series. It'll debut immediately following this live stream. My name is Lianne Castelino, and I'm your host for this preview. Joining me are two gentlemen who are the reasons why the Gifts of Life video series was created, Rick Prashaw and John Dickhout. I first met John in the spring of 2018 while working at the Peter Monk Cardiac Centre at Toronto General Hospital. At the time, I was interviewing John following his heart surgery. I was later introduced to Rick. Rick and John's lives have intersected through a profound, life-changing case of happenstance almost 5 years ago. Every year, the lives of thousands of Canadians are saved or improved because of organ and tissue transplants. Some individuals live in hope that a donor will one day be found. Others die, simply waiting for a match.
In 2019, more than 3,000 organ transplants were performed in Canada. Approximately 60% came from deceased donors.
Each organ transplant story has two starkly different faces. One miraculous, the other tragic. A story of joy and new hope against one of grieving and loss. Behind these are stories of real people with real families. John Dickhout and Rick Prashaw are among them. The Gifts of Life series peers into both sides of the organ donation story. And Rick joins us from Ottawa tonight, and John joins us from his home in Burlington. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello, Lianne.
Now, a quick reminder before we get to some questions for you. For our audience, if you have any questions throughout the course of this live stream, feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer the questions. If not now, it will also happen during the Gifts of Life Facebook podcast page if we run out of time. To questions now. And Rick, I wanted to start with you. How did the Gifts of Life series come to be?
Well, thanks, Lianne, and hello, John, and the crew behind the scenes. And even I think last time I checked, some 500 following this podcast news. So it's pretty exciting that finally we're here tonight to launch it. I remember back to a very hot August couple of days with mask in a studio near Cambridge, Ontario. And, with me under the lights and the makeup running, and I had failed miserably in my dressing room rider. I demanded sour jujubes. I got the jujubes. I didn't get the single malt scotch. So I learned a lot of lessons about riders and everything, but it was pretty fun. The makeup, and I cracked up every single time Andrew or Evan Forbes brought that chalkboard in front of me and did the take one, take five, season whatever. I would just crack up every time. But to answer your question, Lianne, it's the Canada Council for the Arts that we're very grateful for. Like everyone, having some hard times with COVID. Artists are, bookstores closing, books return, no live performances. It's been challenging. So Canada Council for the Arts, bless them, came up with an idea to submit applications from artists for putting an existing work that they had on a digital platform. And I instantly thought of chapter 17, A Brave Heart, in my book on my story and my son's story, that is what I wanted to tell. And we were to learn that there were some 5,000 applications. There's a lot of artists out in Canada that are struggling, and about 1,000 were chosen, and we were thrilled to be one of them.
It's such a powerful story. And John, when the story begins, we find you in the Philippines. Can you tell us what led you to that part of the world and about your experience as a Canadian living in that country?
Yeah, so for many years, I was head of training and quality assurance for a fairly large BPO, business process outsourcer, which is a fancy way of saying call center, based in Canada, but with offices all around Canada, US, and the Philippines. And many of my staff, particularly in quality assurance, were in the Philippines. So I was traveling there 2 or 3 times a year. And at one point, a conversation with the boss, the owner of the company, he kind of hinted at he would kind of appreciate some more leadership from the Canadian team, from the leadership team in Canada in the Philippines, and kind of asked if I might be interested. And so January 2009, my wife, Lynn, and I packed up and headed to the other side of the world. Honestly, our experience there was tremendous. It was tough. Because we were in the call center world dealing with a lot of North America clients, most of my hours were overnight. So I had a lot of long days and mostly nights working. And it was tough for Lynn at first because she was home by herself, not knowing anybody or anything about the city and that sort of thing. We were in Manila, but we came to immerse ourselves in the culture and get to know a lot of people, make a lot of really great friends, and learn to love the food when we found out what we should and should not order. And we particularly really loved the people and, of course, the weather. We were both pretty avid golf fans and loved to play golf. So we did a lot of that. Every weekend pretty much was on a golf course. So that's a pretty good life particularly as an expat,
And undoubtedly, I was just going to say, met some Canadians along the way there.
We did indeed. Yeah. I mean, a few from the company I was with who also were on the leadership team. One of my direct employees, a manager of quality assurance, was living there and moved there the same time we did, and kind of cemented our friendship for sure. And we are still very good friends.
Now, Rick, for your part, you're originally from North Bay, but in 2016 you were living in Ottawa. Can you give us a snapshot of what your life was like at that time living in Ottawa?
Sure, but first I better acknowledge all the love we're getting from, I see places, California, Vermont, and also Ottawa so far. So nice karma and prayers that I can't respond, but anyway, I'm reading it, so that's fun. So yes, your question, I'm a Northerner. You can leave the North, but you're always a Northerner. So I'm a North Bay lad, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, parts of my life. But I've been in Ottawa now for almost 30 years. And 2015, late 15, early 16 was a really pivotal time in my life because my son was facing a second major surgery in epilepsy that was on our plate. And I had been political staff for several MPs, and the last one was Claude Gravel in Nickelbelt. And we didn't win that election in the federal election in 2015. So we'd won before, but I just thought that providentially it might be time for me to retire and write for myself. I wrote for other bosses in my life in church and NGOs and politics. I said, I want to write for myself. I have a book to write on my dad. So 2016, I decided to start by a holiday in California. I went out to see my sister Patty, lose to her in pickleball, and walk the beaches and have some fun. And then while I was out there, there was a call that came, and it would be a life-changing call. It would be a change of what book I was going to write. And I've been threatened by the crew to say no more because if I say another word, I don't want to play the spoiler for episode 2, which you can watch as early as, half an hour from now. So I'll just end right there.
You had me nervous there for a minute, Rick. I was going to go through the whole story because then we're going to be done. But let me go back to you, John, on that note. Why was it important for you that this Gifts of Life series was created?
Yeah. So again, without giving a spoiler alert, one thing you will find when you watch our vodcast video podcast, in the days pre-transplant, I wrote a list of things I would do post-transplant, kind of goals and to-do list. And there was one item on there that, or wasn't on there, that I added to that list after transplant and in recovery. When I realized how much my life has changed for the better, health-wise and just in every way possible for my family, etc. And so I added an unwritten item to that list to spread the word of the incredible significance of organ donation and, what it has done for me and my family, but just what it does every day for hundreds and thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people around the world every day. And so for me, this was when Rick approached me with the idea. I jumped at it. It was an opportunity to do just that. A great platform to have some fun, and hopefully, if we get one person who wasn't previously to sign up to be an organ donor, then we've done a good job.
Rick, you've talked a bit about the Canada Council for the Arts as being one of the reasons why this was created, but I'm wondering, why was it important for you that this project saw the light of day?
Sure. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories, and I find that as important as data and stats are, it's stories. My story connects to other people's stories and brushes up against them. And we knew we had a compelling story to tell, and about two experiences, one on the donor side, one on a recipient side. But like, there's so many stories out there in the donor families, and we met so many donors and recipients and magnificent people. Some listening tonight that all have a story to tell. And I'm of a vintage right now in my life. I'm really tired of debates and arguments and the politics of religion and dogma. I think we move people with stories. So this is one face, a name that we put, and we tell that story from two various perspectives. And I really found a difference, like when I joined the Ottawa Gift of Life, and I would go to Costco for a table, and people would just blow by you. Of course, Costco, they're just out there to shop and gift. And I found if I could just get in front of them and show the picture of the boy, that there was a chance, there was an actual chance with that face, to talk about saving 4 lives, and about, here you're in here to get some gifts, and inside you is 8 gifts that we all carry around in us, plus tissue that we never think of, and we're out getting all these things. So yeah, I just had this thing that I wanted to tell and talk about, and I knew that it was in a story that was the best way to do it.
It's so interesting because partly what you're talking about here is perspectives and how perspectives change in people's lives. John, I'm wondering, in what specific ways do you look at life differently, perhaps now, as a result of the events and the experience that the described in the Gifts of Life series?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was asked that question a lot in the early days, and I think more because with my specific situation is a heart transplant. People had this magical, mystical idea that my personality, I think, would change. But I'm sure what they meant was your question: how has my perspective changed? And it hasn't been a grand awakening or anything for me, and maybe it is for some people. What I think a couple of major things that have made a difference or have been different for me is I certainly don't think I take things for granted as I once did, and smack me upside the head if I do. You just learn when they say life is short, and boy, you learn that pretty quick when you're on death's bed or close to it, at the door anyway. And so that's the big one. But another one, I think the whole process is kind of crystallized or clarified or validated what I felt were my beliefs all along. And I often have been, my mantra has been, a part of my mantra anyway, is to live life with a golden attitude. And that means more than just being a positive, a smiley guy. It's, living with purpose and on purpose, and seizing the day. And I think that's where, I did a lot of preaching of that, but it wasn't until I think the transplant where I made sure it came to fruition. I for many, many years since I was fairly young, I did the High School Musical, and had a love and passion for acting. And my first community theater was in Dunville Community Theater, and I think I was about 26, something like that. And I always said, when life kind of took over and I went down the path I chose, which was call centers, the exciting world of sales and call centers. I always said, if I ever won the lottery, I would pursue a career as an actor. And then it became, well, maybe when I retire, I can do something like that. Well, that perspective changing, and I don't recommend everyone to go through our transplant to have it, is, my mantra after coming out of that is, has really become, this DM isn't going to carpe itself. So just there's never going to be the right time to follow your dreams. So yeah, that's, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to do it. Just, you gotta follow your passions and do what you love.
It's so interesting because, like yourself, John, I mean, Rick's life could easily be a movie, not to mention a best-selling book for sure. So many things that you've done in your life, Rick. How would you say that you look at life perhaps a little differently now as a result of the events and experiences described in the Gifts of Life series?
Sure. Some of it's new, some of it's just so crystallized and focused in a new way, with energy, even at my age, to think about the 9 books in me that I want to write. And I walk around with my dog Dallas, with all these characters in my head, and suddenly with this podcast, I feel drawn to possibility of other podcasts and things to be put on stage and screen. And so that's all exciting. I mean, that's certainly new in terms of, I thought at most it'd be books, but I'm drawn a lot to the energy that comes out of this project. So that's a gift from the Canada Council for the Arts. I am Adam's dad. I mean, that's who I am. That's the greatest vocation of my life. And I've had other callings that were wonderful. But I'm Adam's dad, and I'm still Adam's dad. And that's been a bit of a surprise for me. I'm a person of faith, and yet also Adam, being Adam, as again, I don't want to give much away, but the mischievous boy and the fun-loving boy continues to appear, as you will find out in several of the episodes. Continues to message, continues to play jokes, continues to run outside the rules, and we will tell some of those stories. So I'm Adam's dad. That's the legacy. It's a wonderful legacy, and it's a present thing. I talk in the podcast. There are ways that Adam continues to talk to me, and it's just the way it is. The ways that he continues to be son, and also to mentor me and to surprise me. So the playwright, the podcaster, and Adam's dad, I guess, are some of the real things that shine right now. In my life.
John, when we talk about organ donation, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, but I'm curious, what was your view on organ donation prior to the experiences that you encountered, and how have they changed?
Yeah, I think I was like probably that 90% of the Canadian population who support it, but really didn't think much about it. I do recall signing or, agreeing to be an organ donor when I got my license for the first time at 16. I have vivid memories of having some kind of little card in my wallet for a long, long time, which that's not the way you do it anymore. And I seem to recall you could check a box that either said you can be an organ and tissue donor or will you allow your body to be used for science or something like that. But honestly, I just didn't think that much about it other than it seems like a good idea. And so, yeah, I'll sign up. And of course, that has changed dramatically now. And in fact, at those days, I didn't think I knew anyone who was involved on either side or had any connection to heart recipients or donor families. And it wasn't until I was listed when I started, kind of became part of that family and realizing that there were tons. Like I would get messages from people, oh yeah, my cousin or my uncle or my neighbor. I thought, I had no idea how many people's lives are impacted, and not just people's lives, it's families, families and communities that are impacted by every single transplant. So it's changed. It's become deeper, and you can never completely walk in somebody's shoes until you have worn the same pair. But I hope that that's one of the things that people will get out of this is an understanding of just how tremendously impactful organ donation can be and is every day.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that, having gone through it. Rick, you talk about Costco and people blowing by you as you were sitting there, talking about organ donation. I'm wondering, same question for you. What was your feeling about organ donation prior to all the things that you have now lived through?
I'll answer that, Lianne, as soon as I acknowledge that I think the entire state of Vermont is watching tonight. That's all I'm saying. I'm seeing all these comments from Vermont, so this is great. So, like John, 16, driver's license, and I had a thing in the wallet, in the old days. So again, for me, clueless beyond that. I certainly at 16 wouldn't have seen it as a statement of my faith, but I certainly did come to see that it was an act of my faith, my belief, this concept of giving this great gift of life. But there's so much I didn't know, for example, living donors, like they're magnificent. I've met so many living donors, like it's almost like 40% of the total, I think, as we said in the trailer at the beginning. These are people who, would give part of a liver or a kidney, and in my first Ottawa Gift of Life meeting, 6 or 7 of the people around the circle were living donor members, receiving or giving. So that was all new to me. The wait list just astonished me. The fact that so many are waiting for organs. That last year, 2019, 250 people died on that waiting list. And, I get a little preachy in the end of episode 4 when I, don't much go to the pulpit anymore, but I couldn't restrain me at the end of 4. So folk will get to see a clip from one of the readings in Dunnville, and just that message to say the thought, that we have this gift, and it can be given. The whole idea, the young people are magnificent. They taught me so much. I go in and I talk in high school classes and I say the driver's license, and they put their head up and say, no. It's the health card, because some of us don't drive. And so they were so proud they'd come up and show me their health card with donor in capital letters in Ontario. And it's different for every jurisdiction. And on our giftsoflife.ca, we have a good link so that you can go to any jurisdiction and find out exactly, how you do it. But it's been a steep learning curve for me these last 4 years.
So many powerful strands to this story, and you talk about some of the science in terms of the living donors, and the healthcare is doing amazing things in terms of transplants and what they're able to do, including. And I worked in this space, so I have a bit of a background in it. Taking hearts that actually don't work well and breathing new life into those hearts so that they can be then transplanted. It's pretty amazing. Final sort of question for each of you. What do you hope that viewers take away from these video podcasts in this series? John?
And so before I comment, I have to give a shout out to the other side of the United States of America, where I've just seen a message pop up from a very dear, and I was going to say a dear old friend, but she might be insulted if I said old. So we've known each other for a long time. Let's put it that way. Who has, from Portland, Oregon, who has shouted out to me. Hi, MJ. How you doing? So the question, yes, what do I hope people take away? And I think I'm stealing a Rick answer, because we talked a little bit about this previously. But whatever they want, whatever they can, whatever inspiration they find, then that's great. I never was a musician, but I've often heard musicians say, when people want to, what is their song all about? It's whatever you want it to be about. And I really think that's true. Our objective was, we'd like to get people to at least show an interest, to figure it out, make a choice, but learn a little bit about organ donation and its impact, and what it means to be a potential donor, what it means to be a recipient. And if there's any other one thing that is kind of aligned with organ donation and the story, but a bit separate from it, is gratitude. It's such a powerful thing. Just be grateful. And I talk a little bit about it in the podcast, but a lot of it's not only important for your own psyche to be grateful. I mean, it's good manners. It's what your mom told you. Say please and thank you. But it's pretty darn important to the person who deserves to receive that gratitude. So if there's any other thing that I would love for people to take away, is just how important and significant gratitude is as well.
Rick, how about yourself? What do you hope viewers and listeners take away?
Well, first of all, if there's anything going to be under my Christmas tree, I have to acknowledge that my 3 favorite sisters are all on now. So in London and California, Vermont. So I just had to say that. As far as taking something away, again, whatever the story does for you, for sure. I probably was annoying at some point to the crew, because I kept on reminding them that from the donor side, I wanted to address grief. I didn't want it to be heavy, but I wanted to make sure that we honored the grieving side and the permanency of grief, that there's no clock or calendar to it. It's forever, because love is forever. And that I wanted people to hear that. And yet I've come to love a line that Jean-Paul Sartre, the writer, wrote about freedom is what we do to what happens to us. And we don't always like the plan that is dished out, the cards we get in life. We'd like to change them sometimes, but when we get them, and I'm not saying this glibly, like, everybody can do this so easily. It's very hard, challenging, you need support, but we have choices with what happens in our life. And I think one of the things that maybe people might find in this podcast is the choices I'm making in terms of advocacy, and in the new book I'm writing, I have a chapter called Grief Chasing Gratitude. And there's a lot of gratitude. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of energy that comes, and it's surprising, me. And I hope we've captured it in the podcast. I say, I've said it in the book, and I've said it in many talks, that the decision we made on that final weekend was the easiest decision on the hardest weekend of our lives, because we knew what our kid wanted, and we knew the generosity of this kid, and we were not going to stand in the way. And I would not judge anybody. I mean, it's the worst possible time, to be making these decisions. And yet, the beauty of it is that we had conversations in better times, and because of that, we knew the wishes of this person. And so the importance that people register, that have these conversations with one another about this important topic, and mostly just get this one story, this one face, this one name on each side of organ transplants.
Well, definitely an incredibly powerful story, deeply impactful. Rick and John, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourselves with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Gifts of Life is a 4-part series which will make its debut immediately following this live stream. You can watch parts 1 and 2 of the Gifts of Life video series beginning tonight at just after 8:30. It's about 8:32 now, or later at your convenience. You can watch it on the Gifts of Life YouTube channel, on the Gifts of Life Facebook page, on Rick Prashaw's Facebook author page, or on John Dickhout's Facebook author page. Parts 3 and 4 of the series will be available a week from tonight on December 22nd, and on the same platforms as well. We'd like to extend some special thanks to the following people for making this video series possible: Buddy Brennan at Working Real, Jessica Hubbard for hair and makeup, Andrew Dickhout for camera services, Evan Forbes for video editing, and Joe Cappadocia, the technical lead of the series. We hope this powerful personal story provides you with food for thought on the life-changing impact all of us can have should we choose it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for the Gifts of Life Part 1, entitled So Surreal, a Heart Recipient Story. If you wish to watch at another time, please do visit our Facebook page or website. Thanks for joining us.